Welcome into the Believe in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson and Anthony Armstrong. Of course, wherever you find the Believe Network, you'll find us, your better podcast. Go ahead and subscribe, hit that like button, comment. We are very excited today, Anthony, to have in a very special guest, a man whose work you should know all around the NFL, and he's the star of the Bucky Brooks podcast. Bucky Brooks, good enough to give us some time and give us some insights. How you doing, Bucky?
Man, I'm good. How you guys doing?
Man, I'm doing well. The sun is shining, birds are chirping. Had some nice steak yesterday for Father's Day. Hope y'all had a good Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to y'all.
Oh man, steak. Okay, I like it. The big day. Big day.
Absolutely. I had to cook it though, so I had to go to work and make it done.
Welcome to Father's Day.
That's how we do. You cooked that for. It was so great, man. My wife, she's like, "You sure you don't want to open one of your gifts early? It may determine what you want to do for the weekend." Man, it was a cutting board and a barbecue resting sack. So yeah,
look at you. I dig it.
Appreciate that. See, I snuck that in there.
I love it. That's nice.
That's how it goes. Father's Day. I saw a stat that they spend about $1 billion less on Father's Day than they do on Mother's Day every year. I know that's a big surprise to everybody.
Yeah, that's getting worse and worse. We don't have to take care of each other as fathers, but I will say this: one of the players on the Command, I think Terry's dad, Terry McLaurin. I would love to get him a Father's Day gift. You said, hey, they need to get him signed. We've said it. I got my signed Terry, paraphernalia billboard going on the back of my shoulder. Just a little subtlety, man. Tell me this. When is it too late that this is actually going to be a problem if they don't have this man signed?
No, it won't be too late. Like obviously, from Terry's standpoint, he's up against a gun because the collective bargaining agreement has made it very, very difficult for players when it comes to holding out. Like the fines and the set time is so different than it used to be in yesteryear. So he's going to have to show up to training camp and those things where he runs the risk of losing not only significant money, but years in terms of being vested and all this other stuff when it comes to, I would say, post-retirement stuff or post-playing day stuff. But I think the Commanders should understand and recognize his value, given the fact that Terry's been able to put up numbers with any quarterback that they've been able to play with. And when you look at last year, all-pro season, 13 touchdowns, where he ranks since he entered the league. Like I'm looking at these numbers over here, 11th most receptions by a wide receiver, 13th most touchdowns by a wide receiver since he entered the league. And you think about last year being the first year that he really played with an elite quarterback who wasn't even supposed to be elite as a rookie, but that's what you have. Look, I think everyone understands the value. The trick is Terry McLaurin is 30 years old, and 30 is normally the magic number where teams are either looking to move off of you or they put you in a different category when it comes to the money. And so it's finding that sweet spot where you reward him for who he is and what he's done, while also not putting an albatross around your neck on a contract that he's not going to be able to live up to as he kind of heads into the twilight of his career.
I look at it, Bucky, too, and, a lot of times this is about, okay, like who has the power, right? Who has the leverage, if you will. You look at the Commanders, Terry going to last season, they only have Debo for one season, right? Debo Samuel at this point is on that 1-year deal. So it's like, if not Terry, then who, right? Moving forward here. So it's kind of, and it would put yourself in a weird position next offseason, although the Bengals kind of dealt with it this year, right? Having to deal with two receivers at the same time. I just think it would be, it just makes too much sense, right, from both parties' sides to get something done before this season gets kicked off, to kind of take that off of the to-do list, if you will, for this Commanders front office.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to understand that with Terry being homegrown, being established as the number one receiver, that he gets priority when it comes to who we're going to deal with first, who we're going to pay, and those things. Debo Samuel is on a prove-it deal situation where he has to prove to the Commanders that he can be healthy, available, and productive to this team. And even though Adam Peters has a previous relationship with him, it doesn't matter. It has to be about what he did for the Commander, what he does for the Commanders. So Terry is in first position when it comes to that. But really, I think the age thing is the piece where things can get lost. And we look at the numbers. So DK Metcalf is kind of like coming in the clubhouse this offseason, 5-year, $150. That puts him in the $30 million club. DK Metcalf is 28 years old. So he's 2 years younger than Terry McLaurin. Then when you look at Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, they come in at 2-year 41, 2-year 44. So you're talking about 22 million. Both of those guys are over 30. So for Terry, the team is looking at those numbers, but they're also looking at the ages. They're trying to find what is that lane. They don't want to put him in a $30 million club just because of his age, but he certainly has an argument to be like, well, look, it needs to be a little higher than Mike Evans and Devontae Adams for me to be whole. That's part of the negotiation. And I think the holdout was more him drawing attention to, no, I'm serious, we need to get this done.
Yeah, I think this seems to be a lot of big names are playing the holdout route. And you have to put your foot down. You have to draw a line in the sand to decide, hey, what are you going to do with me? And you mentioned those numbers. I think it's got to really be closer to the 30, even if it is a shorter time period. I mean, give him heavy guaranteed money. I mean, this Terry McLaurin. The guy has not complained at all. He should have complained plenty of years ago. He probably should have been gone, right? He should be on another team by now. So they got to do right. This could be the first fumble by Adam Peters and crew if they don't get this one right.
Yeah, but I think they'll get it right. And I think it's important to distinguish. So the two older guys, Mike Evans and Devontae Adams, they're on 2-year deals. Yeah. DK Metcalf is on a 5-year deal. Now, it matters in terms of the proration and the fully guaranteed money. So maybe they can find a sweet spot, like maybe 3 for 75. You know what I'm saying? Like 3 years, $75 million. Maybe you can guarantee most of all of that to give him that number. Because right now, where Terry looks around, he's making $15 million this year.
Yeah,
well, compared to the thing, like you and I would be like, well, sign me up, I'll take that 15. But for him, he's looking at that in the greater landscape and saying, oh, no, we need to fix this. We need to make this right. The deal that he signed before was 3-year, $68 million. So he's trying to figure out where can I come in to make sure I make up some of that deficit that the top receivers are making. And look, it's a negotiation. He knows what he's doing. Everyone around DC knows, like, he's a good one. He's a real one. Great teammate, great guy. You want those kind of guys to be with the team for the long term.
Another guy, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're talking to Bucky Brooks Show podcast. You can find it wherever you find your better podcast. Good enough to join us here on the Believe in Commanders podcast, part of the Believe Network, Scott Jackson and Anthony Armstrong. And again, hit the like, hit the subscribe, all those good things. Leave a comment. And we appreciate Bucky coming along with us. Go ahead, Anthony.
I was thinking on the other side, another guy who's, putting on a good show right now and getting a lot of good praise from the coaches is Daron Payne, how he's approaching this offseason. Do you think his contract is something that they're trying to consider in relation to Terry as well? Or like, what type of impact do you expect from Daron?
Yeah, well, Daron certainly is another one, man. I think it's always in the best interest of the team to take care of your homegrown guys. Now, the trick when it comes to dealing with Daron is, one, what is the number that he's looking for? What is the production that he can offer up in a defense that, look, last year changed from what it was? So it's the familiarity. Dan Quinn, the more they get to know him, the more they see their value in him in terms of his role, his opportunities, his productiveness. All of that stuff will come apart. I would say that he is aided by the fact that, look, there's not another, I would say, big-time star that is playing alongside of him. Before, they used to have to, hey, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, who's the one that we value? Oh, we keep both of them. How do we split the money? Where do we take money away from other guys on that defense? Well, now that's not necessarily the case. Kinlaw comes over, but you just don't know. We haven't seen what he's going to do in that uniform. They'll look, they'll explore. Joshon Newton is in the building. Like, so there's a lot of things that are in play, but I think this is one where he has to go into it knowing I got to prove it a little bit before I can get that big money to stay, given the age considerations that the team has to weigh.
And Bucky, they're in this sweet spot right now. You got the rookie quarterback contract going for you. You got a rookie, as you said, who exceeded expectations in year one. You hope he can keep up close to that tempo this year, right? Or that production, I should say, this year. And, because this is the time you can kind of take care of the whole roster before you have to take the big bite of that quarterback contract. And who knows how much it'll be, in 3 seasons from now. We're talking about a deal for Jaden Daniels if he keeps playing the way he played his rookie season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you already start planning for that. Like, you have to know, like, this year, then next year. But after next year, we got to start thinking about how much are we going to pay him. And at the rate that the quarterbacks are going, you talk about $55 million right now for like the Trevor Lawrences and like That means that Jaden is going to be looking at 60 million plus at that position. And once you pay the quarterback, it changes the way that you have to construct the team. And those are all the things. So it's part of having a short-term focus while also making some long-term plans to accommodate the big contract. The good thing about Jaden Daniels, we talk about in 2 years they can negotiate that, but then it won't kick in for another 2 years. So there is time at play. And so you can get some of these big deals on the books without it really infringing upon the money that you have to allocate for the quarterback.
On this season, just looking overall, coming off of last year, going all the way to the NFC Championship. All right, just one game away. We can say what we want to say about the score in that game in Philly, but what do you think is the likelihood that they get to have that repeat performance or make that next step to find themselves into the Super Bowl this year?
Well, I mean, look, it's going to be more difficult because they went from being off the radar to now they'll be one of the teams that opponents would view them as a measuring stick. Because the quarterback was so good, people have spent the entire offseason looking at his game and what Cliff Kingsbury does to add an element to this offense, because everyone is going to be better prepared to deal with what Jaden showed last year. How can they take this offense to another level? And then finally, not allowing the complacency part to kick in. Luckily for the Commanders, Dan Quinn has been down this road before. He was down this road before with the Atlanta Falcons. Look, albeit it was a little different because they went to the Super Bowl and then had to bounce back. So how is he able to apply those lessons that he personally learned during his time with the Falcons and having to deal with high expectations? And how does he apply it to a team that is now embracing the part of being good and knowing that every opponent is going to treat this team a little differently than they treated them last year? People will be up for the Commanders as opposed to, oh, this is a game that we should have because the Commanders on the schedule.
What do you think of what they've done this offseason, Bucky? I mean, we talked about the Debo component. I mean, how much can that change this offense? And, I know there's still some concern maybe, do they have the right running back? But they did get production running the football last year between Eckler and obviously Brian Robinson mainly, although he dealt with some injuries.
Yeah, so the number one thing, and we talk about it with young quarterbacks, it's about the 3 Ps. It's about the play caller, it's about the playmakers, and it's about the protectors. So the play caller, Cliff Kingsbury, stayed in the building. So you expect this synergy between the quarterback and play caller to continue to grow. As Cliff Kingsbury gets to know him more, they will add more things to add more dimensions to the offense. The playmakers, Debo Samuel coming over, should make the game a lot easier for Jaden Daniels because he's different than the other weapons that they had. This is someone that is a catch and run specialist, meaning the crossing routes, the bubble screens, the fly sweeps, the different ways that you can get production in the passing game without it being a high risk maneuver. So low risk, high return. You love those things. And that's what Debo Samuel gives them. He also gives this offensive physicality and an edge to it on the perimeter. And then the protectors. Larry Tunsil coming over from the Houston Texans, a legitimate high-end left tackle, an elite left tackle to put on the backside of Jaden Daniels. Man, you talk about what they were able to accomplish last year. They did a lot with a little. When now you've upgraded the personnel around him, the expectation is that the production of the offense goes even higher because you have now better players touching the ball and making those moments. And I'll say this, the better the offensive line, the lesser the need for the running back. As this offensive line improves, it doesn't matter if you have a name brand in the backfield because they're creating so much push in the trenches. Brian Robinson is that dude. He's physical. He's rugged. He's tough. He gives them a little bit of that element, that nastiness they want. Man, you add that with some of the offensive pieces that they've acquired. Look, this offense looks completely different and much improved over the version we saw last year.
I like the addition of Krosky Merritt in the backfield, especially coming off of an off season, right? Kind of getting a red shirt of sorts, not playing much football, if any, this last 2024. So he's come in fresh and he will give a spell to Brian Robinson and that crew, especially with the way Cliff Kingsbury is acting. What type of involvement do you think he's going to make and type of impact you think he's going to make on the team?
Well, I think he's going to have an opportunity to have a significant impact. The thing that we know is when it comes to the running back in the running game, you got to have multiple guys that can do things. You talked about Austin Eckler and Austin Eckler settling into his role, making plays out of the backfield. Well, when we think about Krosky Merritt, what he brings, and I had a chance to watch him at the East-West Shrine he is terrific with the ball in his hands. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He has some explosiveness to his game. They need that explosive element. The thing that is always correlates to an improvement in scoring, more explosive plays. What the Commanders have done is they've been intentional about trying to create more explosives. Deebo Samuel on some of those catch and runs, Krosky Merritt being able to do it, Austin Eckler catching passes out of the backfield. All of those things are done with the intent. More big plays mean more points. More points gives us a chance to knock off the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of the things they did this offseason seem to have the Eagles in mind, right? Getting bigger on the defensive line. You mentioned Kinlaw earlier. Dietrich Wise brought over as well. There, and then they obviously added the secondary with Trey Amos in the draft. What do you think about this defense and what they could be? I think the one concern is it looks like maybe they don't have that true pass rusher, although I don't know if anybody saw Dante Fowler having the year he had last year either. So you never know with this thing. But how do you kind of look at the way that they've gone about their business with trying to shore up that defense? And it really looks like with, stopping the run in mind first and foremost.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the whole thing in this business is about building your team to win the division. And you look at the Philadelphia Eagles and the way that they're constructed. They are trench warriors. They invest in the offensive and defensive line. That's been their calling card for years. Howie Roseman continues to stay true to that. But it goes beyond that. The Eagles' offense has a bunch of playmakers on the outside with a talented running back in the backfield. So you have to have a defense that's good enough to stop the run, but athletic enough to hold up in those one-on-one situations against the pass catchers. What you're hoping is that Marshawn Lattimore can return and give you some of that elite cornerback play, while Trey Amos and Jonathan Jones and some of these other guys are able to kind of hold their own in those matchups against wide receivers 2 and 3, respectively. And then on the interior, Bobby Wagner leading that interior group, making sure that they can keep a guy like Saquon Barkley bottled up if it does break out into a physical affair where the running game is the primary mode of operation for the opponent. They're better constructed to deal with it. But I'm going to tell you, that beast in Philly is different because they're even better than they were a year ago. And so the Commanders have to understand that, and they have to continue to keep adding pieces to the puzzle on both sides of the ball. And sometimes that requires maybe making a move in training camp, maybe picking somebody up off the wire, continuing to think about this is the team that we need to have, because the ideal team is the one that is capable of beating the Philadelphia Eagles down the stretch.
That's the goal. And you got a long season before you get to them. So depth is going to come into play, getting healthy. I mean, you got to travel to Madrid. You have everything on your back now. So you really got to show up and see how good you want to be. Looking at the secondary, I'm looking at the safety position. Quan Martin's been a guy that's gotten a lot of attention. What type of impact or jump do you expect him to make in this being his third year in the league?
Well, third year, we talk about most players make the biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. By the time you get to year 3, the game is slowed down. And so it's a matter of taking the experience and the expertise that comes from 2 years of work, practice. Your habits are good, so your technique is better. You've now played in enough games where you understand the league and situations and how people want to attack. I would expect them to be rock solid. And they are a team that has been really, really good. They have a great coaching staff. They really pours into those guys. I would expect the Commanders to be solid, and I expect him to be a big part of what they're doing, even though he's not a household name outside of the D.C. area.
We saw Mike Sanderstrill last year as a rookie. Obviously Jaden got all the attention, rightfully so, but Mike Sanderstrill had a really nice year as a rookie as well. And he flopped from inside, outside, and back in again. And now it looks like this year, as things stand right now, he'll get to play the more natural inside position. What are your thoughts of what you saw from him in year 1? And you just mentioned it, the year 1 to 2 jump, and maybe especially if they can keep him more in the slot in his more natural spot.
He was one of the better players that I remember watching coming out of Michigan. His instincts, his awareness, his overall polish. He struck me as a pro from day one. He lived up to that expectation, the way that he played his first season in DC. Instincts, awareness, tough, just has a really good feel for where he fits in the defense. That should become even better in terms of his field, his situational awareness in year 2. Because now, instead of guessing and playing and adapting to the game, he knows exactly what he's going to face on a weekly basis. He should have more confidence given the success that he had in his first year. And then if you put him in his natural position, which is in the slot, where he's really able to utilize not only his athleticism, but his high IQ, the plays are going to eventually come. And because Dan Quinn and those guys are going to mix in plenty of zones so you can see ball, get ball, those things should happen for him. Look for San Francisco to continue to develop and become an even bigger factor on this defense.
I'm excited for the season because I know this division is always up for the grabs, right? Up for the taking. And with Washington and Philly being up at the top, you never know what Dallas is going to do. A 3-man running race. If you had to put someone in now, would you say Philly would be in the lead, or you think Washington has made enough improvement to get up there?
Look, I think Washington has closed the gap, but the Eagles have to be the lead horse in this. They have to be the lead horse because of how they dominated the entire league last year. The minimal changes that they've made in terms of having a succession plan and sticking to that plan. And there is something about like the way they built their team that you know that they're going to be one of those teams that could be the last one standing. That said, the Commanders are right there. The Commanders have really surprisingly pulled off a rebuild right in front of our eyes under Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's energy, his experience, the way that he pours into the players, they're going to be a competitive bunch, and they got some toughness about them that makes them a team that people don't really want to face. Look, I look forward to this being an exciting race going into the last month, and with the Cowboys always kind of being in consideration. Look, man, you talk about 3 teams that can really get after it. It should be fun to watch.
Yeah, you get to watch it on Hard Knocks now too. They got the NFC East
right.
going down. So we're going to follow it over here. So make sure they tap in with Bucky Brooks Show. Believe in Commanders so we can follow all this NFC East action as it gets down to the end of the season. Scott, what you got for him?
Well, I just want to thank Bucky again. You mentioned Bucky Brooks Show. You can check it out where you find all your better podcasts. We appreciate your insights. Always good to see all the great work you do all around. Every platform. Bucky does every platform. Of course, Bucky was a cornerback and then became a receiver. So we should not be surprised at his versatility off the field as well.
Well, hold on then. Since we talking on this, Travis Hunter, what are you thinking? You play both sides. I played arena football, and they make you play both sides. Mm-hmm. What type of success do you think he has? How do they juggle his playing time, just playing both sides of the ball?
I think what's unique about Travis is Travis did it full-time his entire time in college. So it won't be new to him. The last person who kind of did it like that in college, honestly, was Champ Bailey. And the difference was Champ, they never really tapped into that when he was in the pros. But for Travis, look, I think it's easy to be a full-time wide receiver and a part-time defensive back because the system that he's going to, they're going to really lean into what he does well, which is see ball, get ball. It's more of a zone system as opposed to man-to-man. That will eliminate some of the running in terms of chasing people all over. He's defending an area. But I think it's a want to, and he has been so good, by all accounts, down in Jacksonville, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. What I'm looking forward to and what I want to see is these are things that we always did in high school, right? Scott, and you guys know, like in high school ball, your best players play both ways. Now, what they would typically do, like your A-level player, you may save them to those big games where you fully max them out on offense and defense. I think that could be in play with Travis Hunter. Think about your local high school. What would you do with an A-level player? Well, in the big games, I'm going to use them more. If we're blowing out a Rudy Pood, I'm not going to put him on the field as much. I think that's how he'll be utilized. But I'm hoping what it does, it starts a trend at the lower levels where we start seeing more guys go from high school to college wanting to play both ways. And so that now we get the best athletes on the field more often. And the trickle up effect will be, it will impact the way the game is played. And it will also impact the draft because I'll be honest, the best athletes are going to offense now instead of defense on the perimeter because they want to touch the ball. And so a lot of times you're getting an inferior player or a lesser player at defensive back. If we can get some of those better athletes to train and play defensive back, it raises the level of play all over. We'll see. There are a lot of people that are excited about Travis Hunter, but I know the kids are watching. And if the kids are watching, you know the kids are going to be doing. And so he could kick off something that we haven't seen in the league, which is a lot of two-way players playing in college, and that ultimately will enhance the pool when we get to the pros.
That's exciting.
That's great. That is exciting. Well, again, appreciate your time, Bucky Brooks. Bucky Brooks Show. Find it where you find all your better podcasts. We appreciate you giving us some time. That'll do it for this edition of Believe in Commanders podcast. For Anthony Armstrong, Scott Jackson saying so long. Don't forget, follow us wherever you get your better podcasts as well. And again, the Believe Podcast Network, give us a like, give us a comment, and give us a follow. Until next time, we'll talk to you again. Thanks again, Bucky. Appreciate it.